I spent about 25 years in Hollywood making movies. My niche was movie production, 5 million and under. I had built up a couple of companies. The last company I had built up was Mar Vista Entertainment, which was bought by Fox Studios.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, on this great journey I like to call a podcast. We're here today with another awesome guest. We have Michael Jacobs in the house. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Yona.
Appreciate you coming on. Yeah, no, it's amazing. We've been able to connect over the past year or two, and just amazing to see how you have quite a unique story in that, you know, a lot of people come to real estate from various walks of life. You came to it from the entertainment industry, and you know, that's something that is not too common. I mean, I've definitely come across it, but for someone to take, you know, and a lot of people, they like to build wealth in real estate, wherever they're finding their wealth, put it into real estate. And I'd love to kind of hear a little bit of your backstory, you know, how you started in the career, how you eventually found real estate, and then how you've grown it to, you know, such an incredible portfolio now. And, you know, we can get into much more later. But for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, love to kind of hear a little bit of that backstory first.
Sure. So I spent about 25 years in Hollywood making movies. My niche was movie production, 5 million and under. I had built up a couple of companies. The last company I had built up was Mar Vista Entertainment, which was bought by Fox Studios. And, you know, we developed, produced, distributed, and financed movies for streamers like Netflix and Disney Channel and Lifetime and Sci-Fi Channel, and just continued to deliver a product, which we would call that product, opposed to, you know, continue to deliver movies all over the world to some of the leading broadcasters and streamers all over the world. You know, we would go to the Cannes Film Festival, we would sell to broadcasters and distributors and DVD distributors at the time, and also streamers. So pretty much large independent, and again, specializing in really answering the need of streamers and broadcasters that said, hey, we need more female driven thrillers, or we need more family disaster movies, or whatever it may be. And then we would go back and cook the recipe up and make the movie.
Cool. Very cool. Anything that I might have heard of?
You know, it depends. Like lots of disaster movies. You know, if you like sci-fi disaster movies, we destroyed a number of cities in my career. We also did a lot of movies for Disney Channel, which were really fun movies. We did a movie that did really well called 16 Wishes and Radio Rebel. Those movies were really great because they hit that kind of tween audience and did some really amazing numbers on ratings, et cetera. They still play today and really popular for the network. So those are kind of some fun stuff. And it was a great time, you know, an envious position by many. And I was able to really navigate in this independent world. And the ultimate validation was the company that, you know, I had put together in a raw business plan form back in 2003, was bought by Fox Studios a couple of years ago, which was cool. So
that's incredible.
Now Mar Vista Entertainment's part of Fox.
Very cool. And so are you still involved whatsoever in that?
No, I started kind of getting out of the company. I started with a good friend of mine and business partner, Fernando Chev. I started Tiptoe in about 2013. And really the transition was how to basically make life a little more less intense, because the movie business requires a lot of attention and a lot of just managing. So it was getting to be a lot of traveling and a lot of time away from my family. So we looked at other ways to kind of start to tiptoe out of the movie business and start to invest into real estate as something that would be a little more grounding, I guess.
Yeah.
No pun intended, just to kind of keep, you know, something that's more manageable, not traveling as much. You know, we picked the market that we were living in as our primary real estate market. And that's kind of what we've been focusing on.
Gotcha. And so you started just from that point on, starting to buy deals. I know at this point I'd love to kind of hear more about that transition story, but you've built a construction company, you've built a management company as well. And it's really kind of all vertically integrated, feeding into the real estate business, and as well as I believe third party as well, like helping others manage properties. So I'd love to kind of hear, you know, you focus on the market where you're in, which is in Pittsburgh. You've built quite a sizable portfolio for, just kind of a single family office kind of thing. And yeah, I'd love to kind of hear what's your focus in that, and how do you see it going?
So we started off like we piloted it. We bought a duplex,
Hmm.
we renovated it, and then we put it out on the market to test kind of like, okay, what can we get for rents? And we got rents that were really surprising. And we started to say, hey, these numbers start to look sense. So we bought another duplex, tried it again. And then we did a final duplex. So we had 3 duplexes. They were getting great rents. The NOI on them were amazing. Return on investment was amazing. And we were like, okay, this is really a market. So we continued to focus on Pittsburgh, and we're really hyper-focused on the neighborhood Squirrel Hill, which is a couple of miles away from University of Pittsburgh's, Carnegie Mellon University, and the downtown business district. And that's been really our hyper-focus. We've now gravitated to larger buildings. And as you noted, we have a construction company, we have a design build firm. So we've got a vertically integrated scenario, which is great because it allows us to kind of go ahead and do value add and kind of control that all, in-house.
Yeah, incredible. And parenthetically, we spoke about this, but my great grandfather was a rabbi in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, in in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So yeah, pretty crazy small world there. I've visited a couple of times, and just incredible to make that connection.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is a small world.
Definitely small world. Now, when you say you have a design and build firm as well, is that something that you've, kind of focus on your own projects primarily, or is it also, for the, the greater, larger community?
So what happened was we started to buy these properties though, and the entire cities, the infrastructure is 120 years old.
Yeah.
So most buildings here are minimum 100 years old. And what we found was that a ton of these buildings needed to be completely renovated. They weren't
Right.
really safe. They weren't practical for people that were relocating here from a DC or a Boston who are looking for like a nice, clean place to live in. So we decided to really focus on that type of market
Hmm.
and go in and start really gutting them out and redoing all the mechanicals and redoing all the finishes to give somebody the opportunity that when they do come here, like, okay, this is a place I want to rent and therefore stay there, for a long period of time. As that started to evolve, that thought process, we started to get increasingly frustrated with general contractors because I'd hire a general contractor and then find out that they were dropping the ball and I was managing them, and it just started to get a little bit ridiculous. So we decided to become a general contractor, and we initially did it to be focused on our own properties and continued to then take, buy a 6-unit building, evict, got it, then put it back on the market and lease it up. So that was like the primary focus. And then what started to happen was we saw other real estate opportunities. Like we bought a couple of like old duplexes and knocked them down and then put up 2 new townhomes ground up in the construction, and then sold those. And then, one thing led to the other. And then, friends started asking, hey, can you do my bathroom? Can you do my kitchen?
Right.
And then that kind of then evolved into this other little kind of business, which was like, okay, we're now going to be a design build firm, but we're also not only going to do our own construction for our own properties, we're going to start doing for other homeowners that need help on a home renovation project. And what's happened in the last, I would say 9 years is that business has exploded. And we are now one of the premier design build firms in the city of Pittsburgh, really focused on an all-inclusive service of handling a job from beginning to end. We have on staff designers, we have project managers, we have carpenters, and we have a showroom. So we're a one-stop shop for somebody that wants to, say, put an addition on their home or even build a new home. We have the ability to kind of project manage that, design it, project manage it, and push it out through construction. We have great carpenters on staff that are what I call my precision carpenters that deal a lot with the finished carpentry and tile and things like that. And then we sub out to, trade partners, some of the other parts of construction. What this has allowed us to do is to not only answer a big need in the city of Pittsburgh, which is like, how do we handle aging housing stock?
Yeah.
But also it's allowed us to complement our real estate acquisition plan which, so they've kind of worked in tandem as we've grown. And so now we have teams together that can now say, okay, we've just started this 12-unit apartment building. That's all being managed through our design build firm from all the way from the beginning, designers, mechanical engineers, architects, all the way through project management and execution.
That's incredible. Is it, you work with more homeowners, or are there investors as well, fix and flippers that use you?
It's really homeowners.
Hmm.
We're just starting to now kind of reach out to like other property owners that we're probably not an answer for fix and flip, but I think we're a really good answer and solution for other property owners that say, hey, I got a 20-unit building. I want to reposition it. And there's tremendous value add opportunity in the city of Pittsburgh because real estate prices in general are fairly low, considering real estate prices throughout the country. So,
Yeah.
You're fighting like everybody else is fighting. Everyone's fighting interest rates and DSCRs and all that stuff. But if you can figure it out, and some of these owners have, these buildings for multi-generations. So,
Yeah.
at some point, parts of the city need to catch up with some of the new construction that's going on
Hmm.
and really do some of this value add because, it's one of the things that I think all these Rust Belt cities have a challenge with is you have this ancient housing stock and it's coming due now. Like you've got to deal with it or you're going to end up with pipes that aren't working and electrical fires from non-two wiring and a host of other issues.
Yeah, that was really going to be my next question is, do you see other cities in similar locations, the East Coast, Midwest, where you have, housing has been there for 100+ years. I see a lot of these on the East Coast where you just, this, the average home was built in the 1900 turn of the century. What do you do? I mean, unless there are people like you who are coming in and really just gutting everything and turning it around, like what is the city going to do with those?
So listen, there's neighborhoods that have done really well and, they still exist. And then there's other neighborhoods that have been thrown aside and are essentially, and I think it's not just Pittsburgh, it's Cleveland, it's Columbus, it's Detroit, where you find these vast neighborhoods that are essentially extinct and, buildings are being knocked down. So I think you're also dealing with a population shrinkage that's occurred in these Rust Belt cities. Pittsburgh at one point was the most popular. There's an area called East Liberty was one of the most popular shopping districts in the world back at, during the heyday of the steel days and all that. So you have a shrinking population that's continued to occur in some of these Rust Belt cities. So now it's like, how do you take these neighborhoods and like figure out like where are the ones that, are being maintained and the ones that aren't being maintained? How do you look at, redeveloping those and giving incentives? And, a lot of these areas that are questionable in Pittsburgh, they're opportunity zones. So there's federal tax credit funding and things like that. So it's fascinating to just kind of see as, you evolve how the city is handling, some of these new opportunities. And, that also depends on like administrations and political perspectives and all that. But in general, what we're finding is that you get a homeowner who bought the house 20 years ago and one bathroom wasn't working. And they're like, well, we have 4 others. Cause these houses are huge. Like a lot of the houses around here are 3,500 square feet. They were built for some family that was quite wealthy, back in the day during the steel era.
Right.
And they have 4 bathrooms. They figure, I got 3 other bathrooms. I don't need to worry about it. And then like 10 years in, another bathroom goes. And then like 5 years in, the third bathroom goes. And they're like, we got to do something with these bathrooms. So we got a lot of these phone calls where it's like, we have 4 bathrooms. We need you to completely gut and redo.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how are we coordinating that with a family living there, et cetera? So it becomes quite a challenge, but that's some of the needs that are really prominent in an old city like this.
Yeah.
And, what comes with that is aging mechanicals, right? Like cast iron pipe rusts from the inside out. So, your 5-inch cast or 4-inch cast plumbing systems might only be an inch on the inside. So you start getting backups and you start having failures in that. And, your electrical back in the day was knob tube, which, is a fire hazard now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like practical things that at some point, they're just not going to continue to work anymore. And, when we approach these projects, we approach them knowing what we're getting into. And we know it's the same old story every time you go in. So we just plan for that to say like, okay, well, this is all getting replaced because there's no real compelling reason to keep it.
Right. That makes sense. Obviously, when you build a company like that, you're finding, you put systems in place and you understand the product and you kind of just rinse and repeat. And that's probably partially, how you've been able to be so successful in building it and scaling it as much as you have? Because it sounds like, the product is pretty much the same. And it's just, how can we manage this? How can we repeat it and do it the same and better?
And I think that, listen, the opportunities, again, I think that all the, real estate in general has a little bit of a struggle right now. If you're looking in the multifamily sector of like, okay, what are these mortgage rate resets right now? And how's that, compute with the SBRs and how much equity you have in and all that. And I mean, that's the big maneuver everyone's doing right now. So it really comes down to, we've looked at various options and we are doing this. Is our goal is to continue to upgrade our portfolio. So we're looking at, in any opportunity that we got to do, some resets on our financing, is to start adding a construction loan component to it and start planning out like, okay, we've got a 30 unit building. We want to redo the whole building. We'll plan on kind of, doing 7 units at a time, evict part of the building, go ahead, upgrade those units, upgrade electrical, plumbing, break out utilities, all those things,
Right.
and just have a multi-year plan. Because in the end, buildings have got to be around here in 50 years and they've got to be built in a certain way, or else you're going to have just epic failures at all levels. So we're just trying to kind of do that as soon as possible. And we feel like, when you do that, you just end up with a much better tenant. They're more happy. There's no maintenance issues. They have air conditioning, they have heat in the winter, it's not like drafty old windows and no insulation in the building and, all these things. And you end up having a tenant that stays much longer.
Yeah. And I remember one of my first guests on this podcast 5 years ago was a guy by the name of Robert Martinez, apartment rock star, that one of the things that stuck with me, he said the most important thing in real estate is keeping your tenants happy, because you make your most money when you don't have turnover. And so, this guy managing thousands of units, like, obviously you come to realize that. So yeah, if you can make the tenants happier, stay longer, that's how you're going to make more money.
And I think that's really a focus of offering like really good product. And again, it's a challenge in an older city and it's really a call on property owners to sit there and pay attention, opposed to looking at like, just the same old thing over and over again, like what are you doing long-term? Because, these cities need to upgrade this stuff or the city starts to go down and decline. So, it's really a necessity. Then you have other parts of the city, specifically in Pittsburgh, where there's new construction going up. So they're building a 250 unit apartment building with amenities and every amenity you can think of. So now you're competing with that. So, you have to keep upgrading your units or you're not going to keep up with new construction. And new construction is attractive to people that want to rent because they usually come with amenities and they're usually in a cool location. They usually come with the Starbucks and, the restaurants and all that stuff. So people want that lifestyle. And the next thing you know, a neighborhood that was never even like relative is all of a sudden relative for a renter because they just create this little mini city, between this new building and a couple of little, restaurants and a coffee shop and a bar. And next thing you know, that's where everyone's hanging out.
Yeah, very challenging. I mean, do you see that? I mean, Squirrel Hill, obviously, where you are kind of hyper-focused, sounds like there's a community that's been there and that is continuing to grow. So it sounds like you've found a niche where there seems to be a lot of products still left on the market as well.
Yeah, I mean, the product's very competitive here because, we are very close to these universities and what I call the meds and the eds, which drive kind of the entire economy around here. It's a transient neighborhood because you could have somebody coming in, somebody like a fellow for, a doctor at UPMC and, he might be here for 2-3 years and then he's out of here. Or, it depends. Somebody's doing their master's program at Carnegie Mellon, or you're getting tech. We got tons of tech happening here right now. Tons. I mean, Carnegie Mellon has driven this robotics, movement in the country. There's tons, Meta's here, Apple's here, they're all here, Uber's here. They're working on the automations and the robotics. I think that we're really well known for. So we get people that are execs that are moving into town that they want something clean and nice to live. So you gotta compete on all levels of that, especially as these big companies are looking for places to open up new offices.
Right.
If you don't have housing stock and renting stock that lives up to what can help somebody move in and be in an easy move in and have those things that people want, it gets tough to continue to maintain growth. So, I wish, all landlords would kind of take this perspective. Some do, some don't. You have landlords in these old cities like Pittsburgh it's like third generation real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their great grandparents bought it. Their great grandparents bought it in like the 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not letting go.
It makes sense, right? I mean, why not? Why let go of it? If you have someone in the family to keep it going, it's a wealth builder and continues to cash flow. Makes a lot of sense, but you got to keep up with it. You got to keep up with the time and the demand, because like you said, you want to make sure the people are going to want a product to rent that is comparable to, what the new construction, what's out there on the market. So you have to be relevant. That's for sure. Michael, I'm curious to know, because you've obviously started and managed and run, several businesses over your career. Obviously the entertainment, the Mar Vista Entertainment, that was huge. That ran for a long time. And now with the design and build with the real estate company, I'm kind of curious, what are some of the fundamentals that you've picked up over the years in terms of running smoothly a business and operating one? Because there are a lot of business owners out there, a lot who listen to this podcast, who are struggling and trying to figure out how to make it work.
And I think that one of the approaches I've taken since as far back as I can remember is that I always like to say I'm in the singles and doubles business. I'm not in the triples. I'm not in the home runs. I'm not in the grand slams. And I think that if you take that approach and go step by step, you don't need to hit the triples, the home runs, and the grand slams. Those are nice, but those are few and far between. And I think there's a lot of pressure right now, especially with social media. Everybody tries to make themselves look like they're this big, amazing person and all that. And a lot of it's a bunch of hype. And I think that gets in people's heads. But at the end of the day, it's singles and doubles that you can slowly build a business. And then on top of that, you have to look at the numbers while you're building it. So you're doing the singles and doubles. And if you start to see that something's working, okay, test it a little bit further and then continue to, ante up as you go. But I think that that's really key. You don't want to go too hard, too fast, because then you're going to fail. You want to go cheerfully and do singles and doubles and, build it slowly. But look at the numbers. Numbers drive everything at the end of the day.
Don't try to hit home runs. Build it up. Eventually you may come to hit a lot of home runs, but that's not your focus. That's great advice.
Right.
Amazing. Well, I'd love to transition to what we call now the final 4. These are 4 questions I like to ask all my guests. And first question to you, Michael, is what is the worst job that you ever had?
In between college, my best friend's parents owned a motel. And on Sundays, we cleaned rooms. And the only reason we did it was because on Sundays back in the day in the Massachusetts area, they were paying time and a half because it was a Sunday. So we were like all day, we were like, where do we sign up for $6 an hour? So that was probably the worst job I've ever had.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I do remember that as well. Like the double time, the overtime hours, but cleaning is for some people, but definitely not for everyone. I hear that. Second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. Not sure if you're familiar with it.
I'm not, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Listen, Dan Martell has a lot of great stuff he puts out. Buy Back Your Time is essentially the concept of, as you're getting busier and busier, if you can delegate and buy back some of your time by hiring another person to take the things that you're not as good at, but you're taking on. And it's like really an entrepreneurial challenge, right? Like you start these companies and you do everything on day one, and then you slowly build. And then it's like, okay, what can I push off? What can I get? What can I hire another person for? What can I hire a second person for? So it's about buying back your own time as you continue to grow and scale, and hiring people to take some of the weight off you.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of books on the subject, but the principle, and I think probably has helped you, grow your business and being an entrepreneur itself is key, right? I speak a lot about this book, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. The same idea, right? It's just who, not how, like who's going to be doing the different things that you don't like to do, and how can you grow, focusing on what you do like to do and what you can do best, and basically the best use of your time. So yeah, love that. Definitely gonna put that on the reading list as well, and put in the show notes for anyone else who wants to check out that book there. Third question, what is a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this can be anything.
So I'm interested right now learning how to play guitar.
Very cool.
I love music and I never really learned an instrument, but I'm really thinking about taking up guitar.
What's funny is it's one of the most common answers to this question is learning a musical instrument. A lot of people say guitar, but it's awesome. I think it's amazing. And I learned how to play. I taught myself how to play guitar when I was in high school. I actually broke my leg and was bedridden and kind of I used to play a lot of sports. And anyways, I needed something to do with my time, picked up a guitar. My brother had one and I just, picked it up from there and love it. It's amazing. It's amazing how you can create music and just really get into it. And it's a language in of itself, because once you get into it, it kind of just flows just like you kind of think in music a lot of times. So highly recommend anyone who doesn't know how to play a musical instrument. If it's something you're thinking about it, check it out, do it. You'll love it. So I love that answer. Awesome. And good luck with that. Are you like taking a course or
Thanks.
you're just kind of...
No, I haven't pulled the
winging it?
trigger yet. I'm still processing, but I gotta take those next steps now. It's easy to say what you want to do. Now you gotta make it
Right.
happen.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But figuring out what it is that you want is always the first step. So fourth and final question, what does success mean to you?
Success can be measured on so many levels. I think success for me is, being able to make a living, provide for my family. I have a growing family.
Mhm.
Thank God we have 9 children and 2 grandchildren, and having them be happy and feel good about themselves and part of a larger family. I think that's how we define success.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. And that's really what it's all about, finding time for your family, finding time for the people and the things that you love. And, monetary success can be a great conduit to make that happen and help you along the way, but definitely not everything. And want to change your focus on that. So I love that. Thank you for that answer. And Michael, finally, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want to?
Sure. We got our website at marvistadb.com or marvistadesignbuild.com.
Gotcha.
I'm on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're even on TikTok.
Wow. How do you like that? I'm not yet on
Seems
TikTok.
interesting.
I say yet, but I'm probably never going to be. But yeah, not on TikTok.
We're starting to I'll tell you that we're really starting to push some videos out on YouTube Shorts. That's our kind of a new place that we're putting some stuff out on.
Amazing. And so are you focusing on like the design and build aspect of that brand that you're focusing on the YouTube Shorts? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, that, and also like we're now starting to like really document and shoot a lot of footage as we're going through the journey on this 12-unit apartment building. And one of the tenets that we're really trying to hold right now is that we want to educate before you renovate. So we want to start to try to really share a lot of education, a lot of things that we know and learn through social media, both on the multifamily side and the design build, the construction side, so that, people can get a glimpse into see kind of like how some of these things work. And this new generation is like a YouTube generation. I mean, YouTube University is a big deal now, and you can learn anything, and the information is wanted and, really desired. So we're going to continue to push content out that educates people on renovation, on construction, on real estate.
Awesome. Love it. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And yeah, I just want to thank you again for joining me. It's been great. I've definitely learned a lot and would love to catch up a little more soon. And to our listeners, thank you all for tuning in once again all the way to the end. And remember, until next time, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.